South Sudan, the world's youngest nation, finds itself teetering on the brink of collapse. Born from hope in 2011, the country has been plagued by a toxic cocktail of political instability, economic turmoil, and environmental disasters. The dreams of independence have given way to a stark reality of suffering and despair. Millions are displaced, hunger stalks the land, and violence remains a constant threat. The international community watches with growing concern as South Sudan descends into chaos. The situation is complex, with each crisis feeding into the others, creating a vicious cycle of despair. It is a tragedy of immense proportions, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the human cost of failed promises. Yet, amidst the darkness, glimmers of hope persist. The resilience of the South Sudanese people, coupled with the efforts of humanitarian organizations, offers a faint beacon of light in an otherwise bleak landscape. The story of South Sudan is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the challenges faced by nations emerging from conflict. It is a story of unfulfilled potential, of broken dreams, and of the urgent need for peace and stability. The world must not turn away from South Sudan in its hour of need. Conflict has been a constant companion to South Sudan, casting a long shadow over its short history. Even before independence, decades of war with Sudan ravaged the land, leaving deep scars on the nation's psyche. The Comprehensive Peace Agreement of 2005 offered a glimmer of hope, a chance for lasting peace, but that hope proved fleeting. In 2013, just 2 years after independence, South Sudan plunged back into civil war. A power struggle within the ruling party erupted into violence, quickly escalating into a full-blown conflict. Ethnic tensions, long simmering beneath the surface, boiled over, fueling the flames of war. The conflict has claimed the lives of nearly 400,000 people, displacing millions more. Despite a peace agreement signed in 2018, sporadic violence continues to plague parts of the country. The scars of conflict run deep, dividing communities and hindering progress. The proliferation of weapons and the presence of armed groups pose a constant threat to stability. The cycle of violence must be broken if South Sudan is to have any hope of a peaceful and prosperous future. South Sudan is blessed with abundant oil reserves, a resource that held the promise of prosperity and development. At independence, oil accounted for a staggering 98% of government revenue, fueling hopes of a brighter future. However, this dependence on oil proved to be a double-edged sword, leaving the country vulnerable to the volatility of global markets and the perils of the resource curse. The collapse of global oil prices in the mid-2010s, coupled with internal conflicts that disrupted production, sent shockwaves through the South Sudanese economy. Government revenues plummeted, leaving the country unable to fund essential services or invest in development. The situation was further exacerbated by allegations of corruption and mismanagement within the oil sector, further eroding public trust. The over-reliance on oil has had a crippling effect on South Sudan's development. It has stifled economic diversification, leaving the country dangerously exposed to fluctuations in the global oil market. Breaking free from this dependence and investing in agriculture, infrastructure, and education is crucial for achieving long-term stability and prosperity. South Sudan is on the front lines of the climate crisis. Extreme weather events, once rare, are now becoming increasingly common, wreaking havoc on communities and livelihoods. The country is caught in a vicious cycle of droughts and floods, each more severe than the last. These environmental shocks are compounding existing vulnerabilities, pushing millions further into poverty and despair. The scorching heat is unrelenting, with temperatures regularly soaring above 40 degrees Celsius, or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. The relentless sun parches the land, withering crops and turning once fertile pastures into barren wastelands. The lack of rainfall pushes communities to the brink, forcing families to make agonizing choices between food and water. When the rains do come, they arrive with a vengeance. Torrential downpours overwhelm rivers, bursting their banks and engulfing entire villages in a matter of hours. Homes are destroyed, crops are washed away, and livelihoods are swept aside. The floods bring with them the threat of disease, contaminating water sources and creating breeding grounds for mosquitoes, spreading malaria and other waterborne illnesses. Section 5. Education under threat. The future of South Sudan rests on the shoulders of its children. Yet the country's education system, already fragile, is being pushed to the brink by conflict, poverty, and climate change. Millions of children are out of school, deprived of the opportunity to learn and reach their full potential. The conflict has had a devastating impact on education. Schools have been destroyed, teachers have been displaced, and children have been forced to flee their homes. The fear of violence hangs heavy over many communities, discouraging parents from sending their children to school. Even for those children who are able to attend school, the quality of education is often poor. Classrooms are overcrowded, resources are scarce, and many teachers lack proper training. The extreme heat makes it difficult for children to concentrate, further hindering their ability to learn. Section 6. The government's failure. The South Sudanese government has faced widespread criticism for its handling of the multiple crises engulfing the country. Accusations of corruption, mismanagement, and a lack of political will to address the root causes of the conflict are rampant. The government's failure to provide basic services such as healthcare, education, and security has eroded public trust and fueled resentment. The government's response to the environmental crisis has been particularly inadequate. Critics argue that the government has failed to invest in climate change adaptation measures, such as drought-resistant crops and flood defenses. They also point to the lack of a comprehensive plan to address the impact of climate change on key sectors, such as agriculture and water resources. The government's failure to address the root causes of the conflict, including ethnic tensions and land disputes, has created a climate of impunity and fueled a cycle of violence. The lack of accountability for past atrocities has made it difficult to achieve lasting peace. Section 7. A glimmer of hope. Despite the overwhelming challenges, glimmers of hope persist in South Sudan. The resilience of the South Sudanese people is a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure even in the face of unimaginable adversity. Communities are coming together to support one another, sharing what little they have and working to rebuild their shattered lives. Humanitarian organizations are working tirelessly to provide life-saving assistance to those in need, delivering food, water, shelter, and medical care. They are also supporting education, livelihoods, and peace-building initiatives, helping to lay the foundation for a more sustainable future. The international community has a moral obligation to support the people of South Sudan. This includes providing humanitarian assistance, but also addressing the root causes of the conflict, promoting good governance, and supporting sustainable development. Section 8. The Shadow of Sudan. While it is crucial to acknowledge the unique challenges facing South Sudan, it is also important to recognize the role that Sudan, its northern neighbor, has played in fueling instability. The two countries have a long and troubled history, marked by conflict, mistrust, and competition for resources. The discovery of oil in southern Sudan in the 1970s further strained relations, as both countries sought to control the lucrative resource. The subsequent decades saw brutal conflict with millions displaced and killed. While South Sudan gained independence in 2011, the legacy of this conflict continues to cast a long shadow. Sudan has been accused of supporting armed groups within South Sudan, seeking to destabilize the country and maintain leverage over its oil resources. The unresolved issue of border demarcation further complicates relations, creating tensions and fueling conflict. Section 9. A call to action. The situation in South Sudan is dire, but it is not hopeless. The international community must act urgently to prevent further suffering and avert a humanitarian catastrophe. A concerted and coordinated effort is required, one that addresses the root causes of the crisis and supports the South Sudanese people in their quest for peace, stability, and prosperity. First and foremost, the international community must use its diplomatic weight to pressure all parties to the conflict to cease hostilities, respect human rights, and engage in meaningful dialogue. The peace agreement signed in 2018 provides a framework for peace, but it is fragile and requires sustained international support to succeed. Second, the international community must provide increased humanitarian assistance to meet the urgent needs of the millions affected by conflict, displacement, and hunger. This includes providing food, water, shelter, medical care, and education. Third, the international community must support efforts to promote good governance, transparency, and accountability in South Sudan. This includes supporting civil society organizations, promoting human rights, and tackling corruption. Fourth, the international community must invest in long-term development in South Sudan, focusing on sectors such as agriculture, education, healthcare, and infrastructure. This will help to create jobs, reduce poverty, and build a more resilient society. Finally, the international community must address the impact of climate change on South Sudan. This includes supporting adaptation measures such as drought-resistant crops and flood defenses, as well as investing in renewable energy and sustainable development.